moving the goalpost, always having something you need your husband to do or stop doing to try to make you happy is part of the red pill that we have to wake up to see how and why we do this so we can change. Hello, I'm Karen Seitz, and this is the Happy Wife School. This podcast is for married women to realize that we are responsible for our happiness, that no one and no thing can make us happy, and that our husbands are not the source of our unhappiness. In each episode, I red pill married women to know that we are the problem in our marriages to good men. For the good men, this podcast will wake you up to the realities of your wife's woman ways, to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to her emasculation in a constructive, caring way. Before we dive into today's episode, a couple reminders. My message is meant for common and usual marital issues. My podcast is not intended for abusive, violent, or compulsive behaviors in a marriage that are threatening or dangerous. Also, please take a second to visit my website and learn more about my courses, which offer solutions for married women and good men. You can find the link in the description below. With all that being said, let's get started. We're talking about today why good men stop trying and give up in a marriage. The angle I would like to discuss this today is the goalpost. The goalpost. And this is the exact phrasing men use when I talk with them, or they're coming through the course, or I see it in the comments on the videos, is my wife is always moving the goalpost. So if you are a man listening today, if you want to share in the chat or the comments your experience of the goalpost always moving in your marriage or relationship, and for the ladies watching, being able to see that in yourself, just as I have had to and have to catch in myself, how we always move the goalpost. So today I want men to understand why the goalpost is always moving and what to do about it. For the ladies listening, and thank you so much to the women here to grow and learn. It takes courage to look at these things in ourselves. Not always fun. It's quite humbling. So I always say take and eat the humble pie, because it is your path to a sense of freedom and happiness in yourself and having a loving, healthy marriage and dance with your husband. But this is the channel, is the red pill for women, that we have to wake up to the truth of our woman ways, and we have to wake up to how we are the problem in a relationship with a good man. It is the only way to change and be happy in ourselves, and again, have a healthy relationship with our husbands. So moving the goalpost, always having something you need your husband to do or stop doing to try to make you happy, is part of the red pill that we have to wake up to see how and why we do this so we can change. And a good man needs to see it, because he gets stuck in the delusion thinking if he keeps doing the next thing his wife asks of him, it's going to solve some problem, or she's finally going to be happy. But that's futile. That will never happen, which is why the goalpost always keeps moving. So today I am going to get to 5 reasons. We're going to flesh this out a bit, but we're going to get to 5 reasons your wife keeps moving the goalpost. But first, I want to talk about the ultimate why of the goalpost moving in your marriage, which is also the ultimate why of everything I talk about on this channel, everything I teach about, all the principles of the Happy Wife School and these dynamics between good men and women in a marriage. The ultimate why of our woman ways, the ultimate why of emasculation, of our gaslighting in a marriage, the manipulation, the games and traps we set. The ultimate why is our internal unhappiness in ourselves. So I want to talk a little bit about that, of because we are unhappy in ourselves as women is the ultimate why of the goalpost constantly moving for a good man in a marriage or a relationship. The problem is we think, in this context, this applies everywhere in life, but we're looking at the context of marriage. We think there is something our husbands could do, change, things they could stop doing that would make us happy. So in our unhappiness as women, there is something missing in our marriage or lives, but something missing in our marriage that if our husband would do, would make us happy. So we always want what we don't have. When we are unhappy in ourselves, we always want what we don't have, thinking that that is the thing that is missing that will make us happy. So in a marriage, it might be a very popular book is The Love Languages. So we think if my husband just spoke my love language, then I would be happy and the issues would be solved. If he would just know the things that I need him to help out with, to take things off my plate, then I would be happy. If he would just stop watching sports, or if he would stop playing video games, if he would socialize more and have friends, then that would somehow make us happy in the relationship. But it never does. And bless good men, because their fundamental nature is to want us to be happy, they chase the goalposts that we set up for them, thinking if I just do this, she'll finally be happy, she'll stop nagging me, and things can be good. But once we get what we ask our husbands to do, we don't want it, because in the experience of being unhappy in ourselves, we want what we don't have. And so we keep that playing within ourselves. So we have to understand, and coming back to the fundamental principles that I teach about happiness, as women, we have to understand that no one and no thing can make us happy. That when we are unhappy in ourselves, which is not feeling good about who we are, not having a connection to ourselves and a healthy relationship with ourselves, there is nothing that your husband can do or stop doing that is going to fill that void and emptiness you have within yourself, that we always feel like there's something missing. That's why women most commonly share with me, I've checked all the boxes in life. I have everything I could ever want, or most of everything I could ever want. I have a wonderful life, but I still feel like there's something missing. That is the experience of being unhappy. There is always a lack or want that we are trying to fill within ourselves, thinking if we had that thing we think we're lacking, or that thing that we are wanting, the problems would be solved and we would be happy, which is why we got married. We thought, if I get married and I have a relationship, if I have kids and have a family, then I'll be happy. And we check those boxes in life, we get them, and yet there we are still unhappy, because of the fundamental truth that no one and no thing can make us happy. Happiness comes from within, and it's having a healthy relationship with ourselves and feeling good about who we are. And in that, we build a connection to ourselves. I've said it many times, the only thing that's missing in your life is you. That you are the problem in your unhappiness, not your husband. It is you. So there's nothing your husband's going to do or stop doing that's going to fill that void and emptiness, that you will finally be happy and you will continue to move that goalpost. And for the men listening, when you are caught in that trap and doing the things you think are going to make your wife happy, you keep chasing the goalpost. So you have to know it's your wife that is unhappy, and she is unhappy in herself, and there's nothing you're going to do that's going to solve that problem. And that's part of the issue and challenge for a good man, is your fundamental nature is to want to make your wife happy, and you are also a problem solver. So bless you, because you will say, literally, tell me what you want. Tell me what you need that will make you happy and solve this problem. And then you do that, or you ask the question and you get one of two responses. One of two responses when your wife is upset or complaining or nagging you about something or has some ultimate issue. A lot of men actually hear from your wife over, I'm unhappy. And you get sucked into the trap thinking there's something you can do to solve that unhappiness, which is the trap she is setting for you. So you ask the question, what do you need me to do? What can I do to solve this issue? What can I do to make you happy? And she's going to respond in one of two ways. The first, if you really loved me, you would know. Or the second most common response that men hear when they ask, what can I do? What can I do to solve this problem? What can I do for you to be happy? I shouldn't have to tell you. You should just know. If you do get a response from your wife and she tells you something you could do, then you are met with, you didn't do it right, or you didn't do it enough, and she's still unhappy and then moves the goalpost further. And this is the cycle and trap that as women we put our husbands through, and the trap that good men get sucked into, thinking that they are the source of their wife's unhappiness, and the delusion that there's something you can do to make her happy. But the ultimate problem, we have to see this, the ultimate problem is our own unhappiness in ourselves. You didn't cause the unhappiness, and there's nothing you can do to solve it, which, ladies, that's why we have to take accountability and responsibility to recognize our unhappiness is coming from within because of our poor relationship with ourselves, which is the catalyst for all of our woman ways and issues that we bring into a marriage with a good man. That's why the solution is so simple, which I'll talk about more at the end, as I always do, which is being happy in ourselves. So where I would like to go is 5 reasons why your wife keeps moving the goalpost. And for the women listening, 5 reasons why we move the goalpost, and stemming from our unhappiness. And then actually looking through these 5 reasons I'm going to go through, these are the very actions and behaviors that we have as women that cause us to be so unhappy and so miserable in ourselves and make us feel so bad about ourselves. And this is what's playing out in our marriages when we are unhappy. So the first reason why, as women, we keep moving the goalpost, and for the men listening, why your wife keeps moving the goalpost, number 1, we don't even know ourselves well enough to know what our needs are. As women, we do not even know ourselves well enough to know what our needs are in a relationship. So in that, men are sold, and from us as women and marriage counselors and books, that they need to understand our needs in the relationship. But the truth is, because we don't know ourselves, and because we're unwilling to do the very things that we're asking our husbands to do for us, we're not willing to do for ourselves. We have no needs in a relationship because we don't even know what those needs are. And if our husband tries to meet those needs, again, we're still unhappy. We still are empty. We still feel unloved, uncared for, misunderstood, not heard. And so the goalpost keeps moving. We never have slowed down to reflect what we want for ourselves as who we are. We are just racing through life, checking off the boxes, doing the things that society says we should do, our friends or family say we should do, just the things that we think are the next step that we should want, which is how so many of us as women run into a marriage, run into having kids, thinking that's what we should want, thinking that's what we should do. And then we find ourselves still unhappy because we never address that unhappiness in ourselves in the first place. Getting married and having kids was just the next thing that we thought would make us happy that never could and never did. And that's part of why we get married and have kids, is then we don't have to think about what we want or what we need, because having a marriage and having a family creates our lives for us so that we never have to think through what we want. We never have to make choices. The plan is set. Once we get married, we have kids, the plan is set, it's in motion, it's rolling, so we don't have to think anymore, and it's all taken care of, which then just perpetuates us to live in camp victim, blaming the marriage, blaming having kids, blaming what our lives have become for why we are so unhappy. And then that leads to, in a marriage, the goalpost always changing for our husbands, because there's no need that can be met. We don't even know what we need, and we're not even doing those things for ourselves. That's number one. Number two of why, as women, we keep moving the goalpost. We don't want the problem solved. We want to stay in camp victim. We don't want the problem solved. We want to stay in camp victim. It's the problems in the marriage, all the things that we think our husbands aren't doing or that they need to change, or if they would do, everything would be fine and we would be happy. But the truth is, we want all of those problems because it validates our victim story of why we are so unhappy, how we've picked the wrong man, or living on the fence thinking the grass is greener somewhere else, that it's the marriage and our husbands that are the problem. So having the problems and the issues there allows us to stay in camp victim, never taking responsibility. If our needs were met, and if the things we asked of our husband to do that we say will solve the problem and made us happy, if those actually met our needs, we would have nothing to be upset over, and the problems would be solved. So if the problems were solved and yet we were still unhappy, we'd have to look at ourselves. And what is it about us and in us that we are so unhappy? So that's number two. We don't want the problem solved. So as our husbands are chasing the goalpost and doing the things we're asking of them, it's just a big giant trap because it's not going to solve anything. And we want those problems and issues there. It validates our unhappiness. It allows us to stay entrenched in our victim story. It allows us to pull other people into our victim story. And then again, we never have to look at ourselves. The third reason why the goalpost is always moving, it is an emasculation tactic. The goalpost moving is another emasculation tactic we use as women to make our husbands wrong and to weaken them. That no matter what our husbands do, and meeting our ever-growing list of demands and expectations in the marriage, no matter what they do, it's never good enough. It's never enough. It's never right. We let them know that, either verbally or with our looks, or still constantly being unhappy and moving the goalpost further and having more things we need them to do to fulfill us in some way, which never does. So as the goalpost keeps moving, what's happening for a good man is that's breaking them down. And a good man internalizes that they are the problem and there's something they're doing wrong, that they can never get it right and never get it enough or good enough. And that's where a good man lives. So the emasculation tactic works. And the goalpost always moving for them to feel weakened in themselves and that they are always wrong. And then that becomes part of our victim story as women, that there's nothing they can ever do that is right or good enough. And we use all of that to feed our victim story and blame them of how they are the problem. I want in this one to give a little reminder that emasculation in a marriage and how we operate in our woman ways, emasculating our husbands, is to weaken them so that we have the upper hand. We have the control and power in the relationship. Another reason that we emasculate is to weaken our husbands so that they're not strong enough to leave, because we are terrified to be alone. So we weaken our husbands to keep them there so they're not strong enough to leave. And that leads to the question, why do we emasculate as women? Because we feel so weak and wrong in ourselves, and we don't want to face that, so we project that and take that out on our husbands. So the goalpost always moving is just another tool to emasculate and make our husbands wrong. The fourth reason that the goalpost is always moving in a marriage, number 4, as women, we don't play fair. We do not play fair. And our husbands know this. They know that they can't trust us to keep our word or to follow through on our part of the bargain. Because in being unhappy and not feeling good about ourselves and putting the responsibility of our happiness outside of us on our husbands, we have no character and integrity to follow through on our word. Our word of what we tell our husbands, even in, if you just spoke my love language, this would make me feel safe and secure and emotionally supported in the relationship, as an example. That our word in that, of that solving any kind of problem, has no meaning. Because then shortly after, we've created another demand, another expectation that we need our husbands to do to solve the problems and make us happy. So in that, our word has no meaning. So our husbands can't trust us in our lack of character and integrity. As women, we change the rules whenever we want. And we don't follow our own rules. We live in such a twisted web of double standards in our relationship of what we expect our husbands to do, that we don't hold ourselves to the same standard and ever follow through. So we don't play fair, and the rules are always changing. We can just say, well, I changed my mind. I thought that would solve it, but it doesn't, and oh well. And so the goalpost moves further. The fifth reason that the goalpost is always moving is that as women, number 5, as women, we don't want to be accountable. We do not want to be accountable. So the goalpost moves because we don't want to have to be accountable to change. That if a good man solved the problem by what we're asking them to do, then we would have to look at ourselves again as to why we are so unhappy, but also to change our behaviors when we're upset because we think our husbands are the problem and making us unhappy. So if we ask our husbands, for example, if you could pick up your laundry at the end of the day and put it away, that would really help me out. We'd have to be accountable to change to stop nagging them. And we don't want to look at ourselves, and we don't want to be accountable to change. So that's part of why the goalpost always moves, because of our husbands. If what we ask our husbands to do actually work to solve the problems and make us happy, we'd also have to be accountable to change. We'd also have to be accountable to look at ourselves and what is it in me that I can never seem to be happy, that nothing he does is ever enough. I'm the common denominator in that. He's doing what I'm asking him to do, yet here I am still unhappy. So what's that in me? So we keep moving the goalpost. So those are 5 reasons why, as women, we move a goalpost in a marriage, and why good men suffer from that in a marriage, of the goalpost always moving. And I want to get into the solution. So talking to the women first, ladies, I hope you can see the answer to the title of why a good man stops trying and gives up in a marriage is when we are always moving the goalpost, and it's never enough. It's never right. It never solves anything. Eventually, he will throw his hands up in the air and stop trying, because nothing he does ever works, and we're still unhappy. And they're still suffering at the hands of our unhappiness, and how we show up and how we behave as a reflection of that in ourselves. So the very, very simple solution for you to stop moving the goalpost and stop putting the burden of your happiness on your husband is to learn to be happy, to fill that void and emptiness, which isn't going to be anything in your life. To be happy, there's nothing that needs to change in your life but you. Because being happy is having a healthy relationship with yourself, living in camp, take responsibility that I am where I am because of my choices and decisions, and being happy just in ourselves because we follow through and have the character and integrity to do the things we say we're going to do for the sake of feeling good about ourselves. What happens when we have our own back and we have a healthy relationship with ourselves, we feel good about who we are, the void fills with the connection to yourself. And the emptiness ceases to exist because you have filled that space in you with you. So you no longer need your husband to be something for you, or do something for you, or change something for you to make you happy, because you're already happy within yourself. And I know that the internal dialogue in that you can think is, well, then what's the point of a marriage? If my husband isn't there to make me happy or to meet my needs, why would I be married? And women have that question. And what you want to realize is that when you are fulfilling your own needs, which is the only way to have a happy marriage, when you are fulfilling your own needs and filling that emptiness within yourself, and you're fulfilled and content in who you are, what you have to realize in being married to a good man's nature is to be caring, thoughtful, loving, wants you to be happy, wants to do things to try to make you happy. When you don't need that because you're happy within yourself, you can actually see and appreciate and let in the ways your husband cares for you. So you still get a wonderful, caring husband, but without the burden and pressure that he has to somehow fulfill you and make you content in yourself and your life, which is never, ever, ever going to happen. So your husband, as a good man, is right there waiting for you, still wanting to care for you, still wanting to love you, still wanting you to be thoughtful and considerate of you. But the difference and the flip is you don't need that. And when you don't need that, that's actually when you can appreciate it and recognize it and let it in. And then that's where the dance can happen. So that's why I teach my happiness course as a solution to women in a marriage, because when you're married to a good man and you're happy, that solves 90% of the problems. And the other 10% of problems are just the normal issues and ups and downs and challenges that we're going to have in marriage. That's just the nature of it. But if you slow down and think about it, 90% of the problems in your marriage are the things you think your husband are doing to make you unhappy. Not recognizing it's your own unhappiness that you are unhappy. Happy women have happy marriages. When you're fulfilled and content within yourself and you're married to a good man, the marriage is happy because you're happy. And you're married to a good man. It's so simple, it's almost dumb. But that is also very, very profound. that all that has to change is you, and having your own fulfillment and contentness come from you. And then you will be happy in your marriage because you're no longer focused on things you think your husband is missing or not doing or needs to change to make you happy. That disappears and goes away. And what's left is the appreciation and care for each other, and then being able to work as a team in that dance through the challenges that do come up. And now I'd like to talk a little bit to the men listening of what's the solution to the goalpost always moving in your relationship and constantly trying to do the things to make your wife happy. So what is a good man supposed to do in a marriage when the goalpost is always moving? You have to stop chasing your wife's happiness. Stop chasing doing the things that you think will finally make her happy and solve the issues. You also have to stop asking the question. Stop asking the question, what do you need? What can I do to solve this problem? Because nothing your wife tells you is going to work to solve the problem. That's where the goalpost is going to keep moving. And interestingly enough, the more a good man tries to make his wife happy and chases that goalpost, the unhappier she becomes in herself. Because as you chase that goalpost and chase the things trying to make her happy, it becomes evident to her how unhappy she is, because nothing you ever do works to make her happy. So she becomes resentful and angry because unknowingly you're constantly exposing to her how unhappy she is. So you're enabling your wife and her unhappiness to continue to chase the things, to chase the goalpost, thinking there's something you're going to do that will solve the problem. It won't. It's futile because, again, she is unhappy. She's unhappy. And you are not the source of that unhappiness. That's why trying to ask her, what do I need to do to make you happy, is a big trap, and why she keeps moving the goalpost. You are not the source of her unhappiness, so stop trying to fix it. And of course, being a good man, you're going to want to continue to do the right thing and to do the things to care for your wife and the relationship, because that's your true nature of who you are. So you only want to do what is reasonable to you, and don't do the unreasonable requests that are absolutely not going to make her happy. But do the things that are reasonable to you, not because it's going to make her happy, but because it's being true to who you are and what makes you feel good about yourself. But not living in the delusion, the gaslighting, and the manipulation that if you do what your wife requests of you to be happy, that she's going to be happy and it's going to solve the problem. As I've said many times today, it won't. It absolutely will not. So you have to stop reading the books, stop listening to the influencers and experts, stop going to marriage counseling, because they are all based in here's what you need to do to save the marriage, or here's what you need to do to make your wife feel safe and secure in the relationship and meet her needs. Here's what you need to do to be man enough to lead in the marriage and have your wife re-engage. None of those things work, because all they are is putting the responsibility of there's something you can do or change that will have your wife re-engage in the relationship and be happy in the woman that you married. And then that's the treadmill that you run on. So the important piece for men is you have to get out of the gaslighting and the manipulation and the delusion that you're the source of your wife's unhappiness and there is something that you can do. And that's what I teach men. First, undoing that brainwashing and to recognize there is nothing you can do, and doing that in a very experiential way. And then through that, gaining your strength and confidence and sense of self again, to be able to be objective and see the truth of what's happening so you're not caught in those traps. and can navigate the marriage in a constructive way where you're not in the palm of her hand and on the strings of her being the puppet master in the relationship and having you chase this goalpost. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. If you haven't, go check me out on YouTube, Rumble, and X. You can find the links in the description below to connect with me there. For those women listening who know you are the problem and want a path forward to take responsibility and change your own inner turmoil and unhappiness, I have a course for women called the Happiness Program, which is the solution to the unhealthy relationship you have with yourself and the issues and challenges you have in your life and your marriage. You can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. And for the good men listening who want a solution to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to your wife, I have a course for you too called the Marriage Rescue Course for Good Men Only that teaches you how to rebuild your strength and confidence as a good man so that you can navigate the relationship with your wife in a healthy, constructive way. Again, you can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you soon.